bookworms, my name is Kaylin and welcome back to my channel Thriving in Fiction. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year Freakout book tag. Alright guys, let's just get into it. I'm going to have the original creator of this tag in the description box below. And the first question is the best book that you've read so far in 2021. I can't have just one. I can't have just one. Alright, so I actually have two books for this question. I'm not cheating. The first one being Mort by Terry Pratchett. Where do I begin with Terry Pratchett's writing? Terry Pratchett, in a lot of ways, reminds me of Douglas Adams. They're both very witty, very irreverent, and very much satirical. They're looking at different parts of society and making fun of them, poking fun at them, but with a satirical angle to it. And in Terry Pratchett's Discworld, there's, I don't know how many different novels in the Discworld, however, there's different sub-series within the whole entire series. And one of them centers on the character of Death. And Mort is the first book in his sub-series. And I absolutely loved this book. Almost sardonic, kind of whimsical wisdom to this book. I've yet to pick up the rest of these Death sub-series, but they're definitely on the top of my list to pick up because I loved this first one so much. I can't wait to continue on with the rest of the Death series. And they're really good books to pick up in between if you're reading a lot of heavily themed, violent books. These are really good to pick up in between to have a little bit of a break and a little bit of levity while still having important thematic discussions at the same time. So definitely Mort is one of the best books that I've read so far in 2021. And the other book that I want to talk about for this question is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I read The Hobbit, I think last month? I think I read The Hobbit in May, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I don't know what I can say about it that other people haven't already said. Tolkien's writing and his prose is so beautiful and description filled. The world is so rich. I mean, it's Middle-earth. I loved Bilbo and his reluctant journey and watching him grow and come out of his comfort zone and Gandalf encouraging him and guiding him, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So I read this book physically while also listening to the dramatic production playlist that's on Spotify, and I highly recommend that way of reading Tolkien if you haven't read it before like I have. And it was just very immersive. So when you're in the Shire or Bilbo is remembering the Shire, he's missing Bag End, you have that musical theme from the movies kind of woven into the story and the narrative, and it just sets the scene and it sets such an atmosphere. You can feel Middle-earth, and it makes it that much more immersive. So I would really highly recommend that way of reading these books, and yeah, Mort and The Hobbit. Two of the best books that I've read in 2021 so far. And question 2 is the best sequel that I've read in 2021 so far. And again, I'm gonna cheat because I have two books to talk about for this question as well. The first one being The Poison Song. So this book is the third book in the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. If you haven't heard me gush about The Ninth Reign, the first book in the trilogy, it is a genre-bending, unique, well-paced, character-driven fantasy trilogy, but also there's themes of found family and magical companion creatures, witches, and a black lesbian Indiana Jones character. And you can't speak about this book series, without sounding a little bit crazy. But this third one, I found it wrapped up the trilogy very, very well. It took all of these different themes, these different genres, these different storylines, and wove them together, and it was my favorite kind of ending, which is bittersweet, and I love the ending so much. So this was definitely one of the best sequels that I've read this year so far. And the other book is, can you guess it? I'm sure you can guess which series it's from. It is Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. So this is the second book in the First Law trilogy. So you've spent the first one getting to know your characters. The plot kind of shows up at the end. Because you know the characters so well, the balance between plot and character just feels like a much better balance in the first book. Well, I still love the first book. And the groups of characters that came together, and watching them interact with one another, bringing out the best or the worst in each other. This book had the most interesting Glokta storyline for me, and Glokta being one of the most interesting characters in this character-centric story, this one came out to be my favorite. So yeah, The Poison Song by Jen Williams and Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie are two of the best sequels that I've read so far in 2021, and I highly recommend both of these trilogies. Question 3 is a new release that you haven't read that you want to, and again, I have two books to talk about. I'm cheating all over the place today. And I'm actually trying to decide what to read next between these two books. I'm so excited to pick either of these up next. And the first one is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I've talked about this a couple of times on my channel so far, so I would like to actually read it whilst continuing to talk about it on my channel. But this is the first book in a new series by John Gwynne, who has written The Faithful and the Fallen, and there's a trilogy after that series, all in the same world. This is his first book outside of that established world, and I'm told that it's very heavily inspired by Viking culture and mythology, and it's just, I don't know if I've heard anyone say a bad word about this book, so I'm really looking forward to picking this one up. And if you can see the bookmark in it, it's because I think I'm leaning towards this one. And the other new release that I haven't read yet, but I would like to, is Son of the Storm by Suyi Davis Okamboa. This is an adult fantasy novel inspired by African culture and mythology. I'm not really sure which region of Africa, and I believe in this story your main character is a scholar, and he gets swept up in the mystery that is the history of the city that he lives in. That's all I really know. That's all I really want to know before I get into it. But it's another book that I've heard really good things about, so I'm also looking forward to picking this one up. And question 4 is your most anticipated book for the second half of the year, and again, I have 2 books to talk about. And the first one is She Who Became the Sun, and that's by Shelley Parker Chan. I believe it comes out July 20th, so it's not too far away. I think it's about the founding of the Qin dynasty, but with a gender-bent main character, so a female lead, and it shares themes with Mulan as well as the Song of Achilles. I think there's a sapphic romance at the heart of it as well, so it sounds really interesting. I'll probably be picking that up as soon as it comes out in July. And the second one is Redemptor by Jordan Ifueko. I read Raybearer earlier this year and I absolutely loved it. It is a young adult African-inspired fantasy novel, and you're following Terasai, who is sent on a mission by her mother, and she has moral conflicts about actually going through and accomplishing the mission that her mother sets her upon. I really enjoyed the first one. I loved Terasai as a main character. She was so selfless and just looking for a family, so it had really strong themes of found family, which I love. Put found family in your books and I will read and love them. Cannot wait to pick up the second one when it comes out. And I believe it comes out in August. An honorable mention would be The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart, and I think this comes out November? I think it comes out in November. I just read The Bone Shard Daughter, found it really interesting, loved where it ended up. So again, another sequel that I'm really antsy to get my hands on. And question 5 is the biggest disappointment of the year. I'll keep this brief because I just read it in June, so I'll probably be covering it a bit more in my wrap-up for that month. But The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I did not enjoy my time with this book. I was rooting for the vampire the entire time. Everyone sucked. I did not like a single character in this book, other than maybe the family dog. But I'll talk about it more in my June wrap-up, so if you're looking for like a rant review, it'll be in that video. And question 6 is the biggest surprise of the year, and I'm going to repeat my answer just a little bit, but that would be the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. I read the entire trilogy this year. I loved it way more than I ever thought I would. I don't know what I was expecting when I picked it up, but it is such a genre-bending, off-the-wall, unique setting, along with very heartfelt characters. The plot and the pacing was awesome. The slow unraveling of the mystery that is this world was so well done. I really, really enjoyed my time in this world with these characters, this writing style. I want to pick up more by this author, but she's not published in Canada. I can only order her books from the UK, which takes forever to get here, so it's a whole thing. But I do want to pick up, I think it's the Coppercat trilogy, I think she's also written. Definitely wasn't expecting my heart to just fall into these books as I was reading them. So question 7 is your favorite new author that you've discovered in 2021, and I'm just gonna get the obvious out of the way and say Joe Abercrombie. Please read him if you want a sardonic, gallows humor-filled, character-driven, why are we all here type of story. It's for you. I loved it. And just his sentences, his prose, it's beautiful. The way he writes a sentence, the way he manipulates language, I'll read anything by him. So yeah. Joe Abercrombie. So question 8 is your newest fictional crush, and maybe Tourmaline from the Winnowing Flame trilogy. I mean, yeah. So I'm gonna answer this in a potentially strange way, and I'm gonna go with Priya and Malini from the Jasmine Throne. And it's less I have a crush on on both of them, and more I love these two together. Their strengths and their weaknesses balance each other and complement each other so well. They have a very unique and strong and independent storyline, separate from each other, and then when they come together, they make each other better, and I loved watching these two together. That's my answer. I crush on these two together. And question 9, newest favorite character. Oh dear. The thing is, your favorite characters are going to be from your favorite book, so you're just, I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. But Bilbo. Read The Hobbit for Bilbo. He's so sweet. I love Bilbo. I connect with his warring desires of, I want to be comfortable at home in front of my fire with a book. I want to eat, 12 breakfasts. I don't want to miss a meal. I want to be surrounded by the people that I know and that I love. He just wants to be in the Shire. But he also has this tookish part of himself that wants and misses and longs for adventure. I loved watching him embrace his tookish side and watching him grow. So Bilbo is definitely one of my favorite characters so far this year. The other one being Glokta and Logan. I loved Logan as well. Glokta. Watching this man who is physically crippled in this brutal world survive on nothing but his wits, watching him outmatch and outpace everyone around him, especially in this second book before they are hanged, is a thing of magic. I love getting his inner monologue contrasted with how he actually presents himself to the outside world and what he actually says, contrasted with his inner thoughts. He's not a character I would ever want to meet in real life, but oh my god, do I love reading from his perspective. Glokta. And question 10 is books that made you cry. And for this one, I'm gonna go with Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This book is a very personal letter to Coates' son, and we were privileged enough that he decided to publish this for everyone else to read as well. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote this, and in it he is talking to his son, and he is educating and telling his son what it's like to grow up and be a Black man in America. And I just found it very heart-wrenching and heartwarming all at the same time. It felt very personal, like we were reading his personal diary entries, and it just made it so impactful. And I listened to the audio, and it was the author himself narrating it, so it's like you're listening to this man just pour his heart and soul and his wisdom onto the page or into the mic, and it's not for us. It's for his son. And that passion and that love comes through, and the hardships that it highlights is heartbreaking. It's definitely the most impactful nonfiction that I've read this year so far. Question 11, books that made you happy. Just read it. Honorable mention to The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So this is another book that I feel like I've mentioned and talked about a lot on my channel, so I'll keep it really brief. This is about a social worker who kind of is just going through life, going through the motions, who gets sent on a case, who gets sent to investigate a case in an isolated orphanage of magical children, and once he's there, he finds his home. And it's so heartwarming to watch. And question 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year, and that's hard. I feel like the publishers are just upping their game when it comes to designing awesome covers that tell you a lot about the story that you'll encounter. I mean, look. It's so pretty. I bought all of these books this year. And Orbit. They're all Orbit. Orbit kills it. Since I already have these out, this is the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams, and these books are just so pretty. I have these on my coffee table, they're so pretty that I display them on my coffee table. I don't know. So we'll go with these. We'll go with the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. And question 13, what books do you have to read before the end of the year? And I'll link my video that I did earlier this year, and that is the series that I'd like to either finish or at least continue reading before the end of the year. So I'll link that video up above. But other than that, I do have two graphic novel stories that I'd like to either complete or catch up on. And the first one is Monstrous by Marjorie Liu. This is a very unique steampunk Asian-inspired world where you have humans warring with a magical race called Arcanes, and it's just very unique and hard to describe, so I will leave it there. But I've read this one, and I do want to catch up on the others that are published in the trade paperback this year. The other one being Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I've been reading a lot of Neil Gaiman this year, and I've loved every single moment of it. I've started The Sandman a couple times, and I loved it. I don't know why I ended up putting it down, so I definitely want to pick it back up again, start it again, and actually finish it this year. Alright guys, that has been the mid-year Freakout book tag. Let me know in the comments below what's been your favorite book that you read so far in 2021. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one, guys. Bye!